Hey y'all, happy Saturday. Are you on the internet on Saturdays? Let me know where you're watching from. If you can hear me, if you can see me. Hey to everybody. Welcome to all the new members to the channel. There's so many new people here. And so I just felt it necessary to do a live chat today since there's so many new people, and I want to answer some of the questions that I have been seeing in the comment sections from my previous video. So let me know where you're watching from as you come on. Let me know if you can see me. Let me know if you can hear me. I'm Dr. Brianna Whiteside. I am Dr. Brianna Whiteside, former tenure track English professor, and I'm really excited to have y'all on my channel. So welcome to all the new people. Welcome to all the returning friends. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can see me, because we're just going to chat real quick today. I want to introduce myself to everybody that's new to the channel, but I also want to clarify a few things that you may have saw in that viral video that YouTube randomly pushed. So anyway, I titled this live, "Be careful what you ask for," because you really have to be careful what you ask for, especially when you're asking God for something. Y'all, when I did that video, the video of me crying on the internet. Hey, Vanessa. When I did that video of me crying on the internet, I did not think it was going to go viral. I didn't. I didn't even plan for it to. As a matter of fact, y'all saw I didn't do any editing. All I did was upload the video and get off the internet, right? But prior to me doing that video and prior to even me entering into September, I asked God to increase my visibility, right? Increase my visibility. And what I was asking for was not for more people to see me per se, but for more people to hear the message of the kingdom. Because y'all know, if y'all have been following my YouTube channel for any stretch of time, you see there are two playlists that are dedicated to the kingdom. I am a kingdom girl. That is what I do. That is what I study. That is my contribution to the faith. So when I asked God to increase my visibility, I wanted him to increase those teachings, not increase my visibility or my vulnerability, right? And so when I uploaded that video, it's so fascinating because that video was part of my podcast. If you don't know, I release a podcast every Sunday night. So I'm thinking I'm just going to be talking to the people who regularly view my podcast. That's it. They know the journey. They've been there from the beginning of the story. And this was just I didn't want to get up there and lie, because sometimes people get on the internet and they lie and they act like everything's okay and they keep trying to go on over the pain. And it just seems very disingenuous. And that's never who I've been. And that's not who I'll ever be. I'll always tell the truth in real time. And I didn't want to talk about becoming an uncommon believer when I'm struggling to also become an uncommon believer. Like, I knew that we were going to be in that teaching series or in that podcast series in April when I created my content calendar. So it shocked me for me to have these feelings that I had in the other video in September when I know we're talking about becoming an uncommon believer. So ultimately, I did not want to get on the internet and y'all look at me and say, this girl is lying about something. This girl is lying about something. And I don't want to do that. So let me catch everybody up. All right. I want to catch everyone up. And I also want to debunk some of the myths that I kind of saw in the comments. I'm trying to respond to all the comments, but there are almost 1,000 of them and they just keep coming in. So I'm going to do my best to respond to the ones that really stood out. And I want to just debunk some of the myths surrounding that video because it's so easy for people to comment on a moment in time without knowing the full story. This is no shade to anyone. I know I can do that too. And so I just want to provide a lot of clarity for all the new people who decided to journey with me or who decided to subscribe to the channel, right? So first off, y'all, I'm Brianna. I'm Bree. I'm Dr. Brianna Whiteside. I am from Chicago. I am from the inner city, and you don't make it out of the hood without the grace of God and some grit, okay? So I'm from the hood, and I should not be where I am today. Hey, Vanessa. Hey, Uvo. Hey, Blue. Hey, y'all. Let me know. Say hey to me in the chat so I can shout you out. But you don't make it out of the hood without the grace of God and some grit. And so I am from the inner city, from the hood, from Roseland, from the east side too, mainly my earlier upbringing. And I have traveled around the world living in a sense, right? Not the world, but the United States. I've lived in a lot of places. School has taken me a lot of places. I knew that in order to get out of the hood, I was going to go the academic route. I had to go where there was least resistance. And for me, least resistance was academics. So I am a product of a single parent home. If y'all see any of the podcasts, my mom do a podcast with me sometimes. I am a product of my mother's prayers. Okay. So I'm from Chicago. I am a first generation graduate. I went away to college. I was running away from my family history. Every woman in my family is a single mother. So I left Chicago and I went to, out of all places, Mississippi. I don't know why I went to Mississippi. I guess it was ignorance. I got into every school I had applied for, but I didn't have much guidance. No one had really gone away to school. And so I just did any, mini, miny, mo, picked a school, and ended up in Jackson, Mississippi, which was the worst decision of my life, okay, of my early 20s. But I'm not a quitter. I finished in 4 years. I went to Tougaloo College. I graduated, and then I moved to St. Louis because I went to go get my master's. And so I moved to St. Louis. And all of this is going to be important to this story, this narrative, and this live. I got my master's in 2 years, right? And then I moved back to the South. I moved to Alabama for my PhD. So at 24, I started teaching college. At 28, I got the PhD. And at 34, I stopped teaching college. Okay. So I've been teaching higher education for 10 years. And all this matters because y'all saw me crying, right? Talking about I left my career. But, you know, all throughout that journey, it was only God's grace that got me through higher ed. Yes, I've always been a hard worker, but I haven't had a lot of, I've always had to do a lot with less, if that makes sense, right? I've always been the underdog, and that's okay because that's just how my life worked out for me, right? I'm from the inner city. I'm from poverty. I'm from a single parent home, but I somehow, by the grace of God and better decision making, right? A strict parent at that, went from the hood to earning a PhD at 28. In the midst of me earning my PhD, I started to know God for me, like started my own personal journey. And let me back up and say, I was raised in the church. And so I saw a lot of people make a comment like, oh, you need to get in a Bible believing church. And I'm like, where are y'all getting that I'm not in church or I haven't gone to a church? Where are y'all getting that? I never said that I wasn't in a church, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand where those comments are coming from. But I was raised in John Eckhart's church. And if y'all know John Eckhart, that's charismatic Pentecostal. Those are my roots. And so that is in my DNA. Y'all saw me crying. That's the human side of me. It's not because the word isn't in me. It's not because I'm not a believer. It's because this journey has been slapping the taste out of my mouth. That's really what it's about. And so I grow up in a deliverance church. I believe in deliverance. I believe in speaking in tongues. I believe in it. Okay. I believe. I was raised in it. I've seen it. Anyway, I started my own personal journey with God at 28 while I was in grad school. I learned about my identity. And so that leads me to like another comment people were saying, like, you got to find your identity. Your identity is not in your career. I never said that. My career was my assignment. And so ultimately, I want y'all to think about it like this. When we think about general purpose, and we always talk about finding your purpose, we should also consider that there are time-sensitive assignments. We have a general purpose, right? And then we have seasonal assignments. My assignment for 10 years was to teach in higher education. Now that assignment is over and it's time for me to start phase 2. So I just want to be clear, y'all, that I've always known that my identity was not in academia, but that is my assignment. And if you let go of something you've been doing for 10 years, you're still going to feel the grief of it. You're still going to feel the weight of it. And that doesn't mean that your identity is trapped or locked in that type of thing. It does not. A plus B don't equal C that way. You know what I'm saying? And so I want us to not cast those type of comments because we're filtering it through our own maybe experiences, right? On my channel, we're positive, we stand on the word, we let people go through their journeys, and we all work out our salvation with fear and trembling. So my identity, y'all, is not wrapped in my career. It's always been wrapped in God, because he snatched me up in my 20s. I'll be 35 next year. Okay. So I went on this journey with God at 26, not knowing what to do. And people would say, you need to find your identity in Christ. And at the time, I would be like, okay, how? Tell me how to find my identity in Christ. And they'll say, pray about it. And, all the cliche things that we do. And as a thinker, I'm like, this isn't helping me. So one day, I am just in from Amsterdam. I was doing a study abroad thing in Amsterdam for a few weeks. I'm just in from Amsterdam. I'm laying on my bed. And this is the time that I'm trying to discern the voice of the Lord for me, right? I don't know when he's talking at this point in my life. I don't know when he's talking to me. I hear what people say, but it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. I can't connect. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm laying in my bed and I hear this whisper and it says Esther. And I'm like, maybe I just got jet lag. Like, I'm tired. Maybe I just got jet lag. And plus, don't nobody read the book of Esther at all. To me, at this time, don't nobody read the book of Esther. And so I hear it again. And this is the moment where I'm starting to become conscious of God speaking his voice through to me. And so I go read the book of Esther. Y'all know it's short, 10 chapters. But as I started to study it, that book began to just unlock. It just unlocked for me. And I went and learned how Esther found her identity. I wrote my first book on identity. It's called Woman of Royalty, Rule from a Place of Authority. And it is written from the perspective of Esther and how God helped me journey through that book and to find my own identity. So I saw someone say, you're a former academic. You can, why don't you go write books, create content? I just want to encourage that person to do just a quick Google search of my name and just to see how many books I've written. And this is not me being cocky. This is just me encouraging people to do their due diligence before they speak. This is important for all of us, including myself, to just take a look at the internet and see, let me see, has this person done this before I try to clap back at them? You know what I'm saying? So, but that's not even, I don't even care nothing about that because my work stands for itself. What I was showing you all is journeying with God. Okay, let's back up. So I'm learning my identity in Christ. I get it down pat, but the journey was still hard. A 26-year-old woman giving up a lot of stuff to follow God. And my friends are like, girl, it ain't that deep. Girl, you doing too much. Girl, you need to enjoy your 20s. And I'm like, I don't think I need to enjoy my 20s like this because I know what's in my lineage. I know what every woman in my family struggles with. So I have to restrain myself. I have to restrain myself in my 20s, right? And I do know that what you don't do in your 20s, you're going to pay for in your 30s. It's just how it goes. And I didn't want to pay for certain things in my 30s, which I'm in right now. So I go through this identity journey. I graduate in 2018 with my PhD, and all hell broke loose at that moment. Now, I do get this tenure track job. Let me tell y'all, let me say that what y'all saw me crying about, me leaving my career, was not my first time having to step out on faith and follow God. Let me tell you how it started. My first time having to step out on faith and follow God when it didn't make sense was my move from Alabama to Las Vegas. That's where my career was. My career was in Las Vegas. I graduate my PhD program, and I don't know if y'all know how much teachers get paid if you don't have your degree yet, but I was getting paid $13,000 a year below the poverty line. That's not sexy. It's not cute. At the time, my friends who weren't in academia, they were making 30 grand, 40 grand. I'm like, ooh, that y'all balling. Making 30, 40, 50 grand. I'm making 13 as a graduate student teaching higher education because I don't have my terminal degree. Yes, I have a bachelor's. Yes, I have a master's. But if you're in academia, if you don't have that terminal degree, you're not getting paid like that. You know what I mean? And so for 4 years, I was getting paid 13 grand a year. Okay, cool. That's how it goes. It's academic hazing. Any grad student knows how it feels if you're a graduate assistant. So I go out, I apply for my tenure track jobs just like everyone else. And I get UNLV. But before I get UNLV, that's my former employer. Um, I'm in Vegas. I had never been to Vegas, didn't have a desire to go to Vegas, had never been to the West Coast. And I was shocked that God gave me that job out of all of the other jobs that I applied for, because I'm like, I'm trying to do the right thing. And you going to leave me to bring me to Vegas of all places where everything is legal and open? I was offended. I'm not even going to hold you. I was offended because I'm new in this walk. I started trying to follow God at 26. At 28, you going to move me to Vegas? What? But anyway, before I moved to Vegas, I graduated in May. My brother takes his own life in May, probably a week before my graduation. So the family is in mourning. This is the best time of my life and the worst time of my life at the same time. And I am having another storm to walk through. And this is why I say this career leave is not the hardest thing. Let me tell y'all what happened. When you graduate in May, they cut off your funding. That little 13 grand is gone. So I negotiated with my former employer to let me teach in the summer, right? To kind of bridge the financial gap. They said, cool. So it was a $10,000 negotiation that would have covered me for the summer. That would have covered my move. That would have covered me settling. That would have covered everything. So somehow, and it was demonic, but somehow they could not figure out how to pay me. So when I was supposed to get paid at the end of June, because mind you, academics, we get paid once a month. So I've learned how to be a good steward of my money because you only get paid once a month. So they couldn't figure out how to pay me. So I'm teaching. And at the end of June, I'm like, hey, I don't see the payment, processing. And they're like, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. Y'all, July 15th come, still no money. Now, mind you, my money stopped in May. It's July 15th. Not only that, in the South, there's this thing called hurricane season. So in Alabama, we were getting the after effects of the hurricane from Florida. It just so happened, I was in Chicago when this happened. Y'all know I'm from Chicago. So the after effects hits Alabama. Not only does it hit Alabama, it hits the house that I was renting. Not only did it hit the house, a tree fell on the roof, caved in the roof, and the structure split in the house. When I say split, and I mean the wall came away from the structure. Where it came away from the structure was over my bed. So when I got back to Alabama from Chicago celebrating a graduation, I come back to a caved in roof where I would have been sleeping. Y'all hear what I'm saying? Right? So that meant that I was now displaced. I had to live in a hotel. So not only do I have no income because my job can't figure out how to get the money. I don't know how, but they couldn't figure it out. As I said, I think it was demonic. But now I am homeless in a sense because I'm living in a hotel and I'm living on my credit cards. Okay. My job says, hey, Brianna, we're going to go with we've offered the position to another candidate. So I don't know if y'all know anything about like the job market in academia, but anybody can apply for a job. Then they'll narrow the applications down to 30. Then only 5 people will come to campus. And when you come to campus to give your job talk, that's probably like your 3rd round interview. That's when you're interviewing, you're giving a talk about your research, you're interviewing with students. Sometimes you got to give teaching demonstrations. You have to meet the chancellor, the provost, like you're interviewing with the entire university at large in a sense. And I had done that. I'm waiting for my job because I knew that when I was in Vegas, God told me that I was going to be there. So it didn't make sense for them to say I offered this job to another person. I'm like, God, you told me that this was going to be the place, even though I don't want to be in this place. You told me that this is going to be the place. So how did they offer my job to somebody else? So I'm spiraling now, right? Because my whole life, I wanted to be a teacher. I knew I wanted to be a teacher in 2nd grade. I taught freshmen at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. I taught freshmen at the University of Alabama. I've only been an educator. in a sense. So it doesn't make sense for me to know that I belong. You told me I'm going to be in Vegas and them to offer this position to somebody else. The math isn't math. And so I'm crying. Like I'm crying my eyes out because I don't have a plan B. I only have plan A. I only ever have plan A, y'all. That's how I've always lived my life. It's always been God ordained plan A. I never have a backup. If I have a backup, I'm not going to obey God. That's just me, right? I'm not telling you not to. I'm just saying I don't have a backup. The plan is the plan. I'm running the play full out. Even if I got to cry, I'm running the play, you know? So anyway, that person only really wanted to get the job at UNLV to negotiate a higher salary with their university. So then they finally spin the block on me and say, hey, we want to offer you that position. Okay, cool. We negotiate the salary, offer me the position. I get the position, right? I'm teaching online, but y'all still haven't figured out how to pay me. So now I still have to move to Vegas. There is nothing holding me to Alabama. I don't have a house. Remember, the tree fell on it. So I'm living in a hotel. I don't have any money. I gave away the entire house that I was renting. And by gave away, I mean gave away everything in it. Like this isn't the first time I've moved and given away everything to someone in need. Texas was my third time doing that. Alabama, I gave it away to someone who needed it. I shipped my clothes, I shipped my car, and I got on the plane with $30 in my pocket from Alabama. Now I'm 28. This is my first faith move because I'm like, I know this what you said, but I don't have provision, but I know this what you said. And I got on that plane. My face was broken out. Like I was going through, right? And you could tell when I'm going through, my face breaks out. And all people could do was pray for me. No one could have financially supported me in that way. And that's not what God told me to do. He said, go to Vegas. And so I go to Vegas, a place that I know no one at, right? With 30 something in my pocket. And I cry myself to sleep that night. And I'm like, I remember telling my mama, I don't know what I'm going to do. Same thing y'all heard me say in that video. I don't know what I'm going to do. All she could do is pray. She is a mother who has raised me in the fear of the Lord, but she's also seeing her child break, right? Who's worked hard to get out of the hood, who's done more with less, who's checked all the boxes, but still has to walk by faith. The next day I wake up. Somehow they figured out how to release some of the funds they owed me. Somehow, I don't know. But it didn't matter if they didn't release the whole 10K. They released enough for me to get my car back because y'all know it was already shipped. I wasn't driving from the West Coast. From the South to the West Coast. It was already shipped. And it was enough for me to give the leasing office of my new apartment the first month's rent. That was enough. So when y'all see me say, this isn't the first time I've had to give up something and walk by faith, that was number one. I lived in Vegas for 6 years, 2018 to 2023. And people would think this was where you want to be. This is where you want to party. Not true. Not true. Vegas is the desert. If you're not going to do the strip stuff, which I didn't do, and a lot of people don't do when you live there, it's the desert, the literal desert. I lived in the desert from 2018 to 2023. And not only was it a physical desert, it was a spiritual desert. I got the taste left out of my mouth every year, crushed every year, pruned every year. Every year. It was not a walk in the park. It was not. It was hard because I knew that God put me in that desert to do what he needed to do, to get me prepared for whatever it was coming next. So I saw a lot of people say, like in the comments, like, God wouldn't tell you to move. You don't have a job. He don't want you on the street. I want to be clear with y'all. I am not a financially insecure woman. And this is what I mean. In 2019, God told me to start getting my money together. And I didn't know he was preparing me for the moment to leave my career in 2024. 2019, I chronicled this on all of my social media platforms. If you just go back far enough, I started getting out of consumer debt. I was in $10,000 of consumer debt. Now, mind y'all, I just came from making 13 grand to a salary tenure track position. that's a big jump, right? So I'm like, yeah, I'm out here. Well, he's like, you need to start getting your money together. So I started climbing out of consumer debt. I gave myself a year to get out. I got out in 8 months. That's 10 grand. At the same time, this is 2019. 2020, I saved my first 10 grand. 2021, I learned the stock market and saved 20 grand that year. Not only did I do that, I fell into the little Forex trap. And I say the Forex trap because, people was like pumping up Forex and I failed at it, but I never failed at reading charts and technical analysis. And why do I tell you this? Because reading charts and technical analysis helps you enter option trading in the stock market. I never said I was financially insecure. I know how to trade options. I know how to create products. I know how to get to the money. This was not a money conversation. This was a conversation of me continuing to submit my will for a will that I don't want. This is me saying, I'm going to give up all of the ways that I know how to live my own life, and I'm going to take up my cross and live the life you want me to live, because you let me have my dream the first 10 years of my career. The first half of my career, you let me do what I wanted to do. I fulfilled my goals. Now I am stepping into a life you want for me, and I don't want that, but I'm still going to do it. So for everyone who is in the comments saying, oh, God won't want you homeless, God didn't tell you to leave your job, you're not going to have no money. I got my money right before I left because he prepared me for this decision. So let's not cast those type of comments and say those type of things when we're not aware. That's dangerous work, y'all. That's dangerous work. And sometimes Christians are the most vicious people. And I don't know why we're like that. It's not right. Whether it's me, your family, your cousin, your friends, it's not right. We should not be like that. It's just not okay. It's not okay. And so, and I tell that part of my story to say, like, I'm not a financially insecure woman, not to boast, but to say I obeyed God years before I got to this moment so that I would not be financially insecure. It didn't matter that I didn't know why he was saying, get your money together in 2019. It didn't matter when he told me to start learning how to invest, get your nest egg up. Hey, even still sowing into ministries and into the poor. I am not a tither, and I need to say that I'm not a tither. I am a kingdom benefactor. That means that I don't give 10%. Most of the time, I'm giving way more, 4 times as much, because I believe in the work of the kingdom. I believe in the work of the kingdom and helping my brothers and sisters, right? So someone else put like, oh, you should be tithing and all of that. That's okay. God loves a cheerful giver. I've done a lot of teachings on those things, right? I believe I'm called to underwrite the kingdom, so I'll never just give 10%. I don't have to. I'm a blessed woman, and I'm a disciplined woman, and I'm a principled woman. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want y'all to look at me and to think I was crying because I was threatening some type of homelessness or didn't have money. That's just not true. I never said that. So I don't want you to read that into the journey. I was crying because I'm submitting my will and I don't want to. I don't want to. But anyway, let's keep going in the story. So towards the end of 2022, I'm leading the Let There Be challenge, right? And if y'all have done the Let There Be challenge, it went viral on TikTok in 2021. 2022 was it went viral. I don't know how it went viral. It just did. But that's a challenge that I do, and we're going to do it again. It's the last 40 days of the year where we teach on the power and the importance of words and how to legislate in the spirit. As a matter of fact, if y'all want to go back and look at any of the previous teachings from the Let There Be challenge over the last 2 years, the playlist is right here on my channel. It's under the Let There Be challenge. Okay. Y'all would see how a moment of me saying, hey, I tried this thing last year, you should try it, and got off the internet, went viral in the same way that this last video a few days ago went viral. I'm not asking for that type of virility. I was asking God to increase the exposure on my teachings, not on my emotions, not on my personal feelings. But he does what he wants to do. Anyway, where was I going with this? So I don't know. But anyway, 2022, we're in the middle of the Let There Be challenge. And I started to sense this turning point in my life. Nothing was wrong, but I was like, I think my time is coming to an end. I think my time is coming to an end here. Mind y'all, I was going up for tenure in 2020 2024, my career was doing exactly what I set it up to do. And if y'all don't know what tenure is, that's job security for the rest of your life if you want it. Even when I resigned, my employers are like, we don't understand. Are you sure? Came back with 3 offers. Are you sure? And I heard the Lord say, do not take any of those offers. And I knew if I took the offer, I was going to be holding the place of someone else. And what I mean by that is someone is destined to be in my old position. If I didn't move, they couldn't step into the next phase of their destiny. I didn't want that blood on my hands. So I said, no, go ahead. I'm going to resign. But let me back up. End of 2022, I just get this sense of discontentment out of nowhere. I'm like, I think my career is about to end. And I tell my friend, who's a prophet, by the way. I also want to, let's insert here. I am surrounded by a company of believers and prophetic folks, y'all. I'm not alone. Okay? I got to say that because I saw that in the comments too. I'm surrounded by a body of believers. I am a believer too, but I'm still getting the taste slapped out of my mouth. Just because you're surrounded and connected does not mean that you're not going to bend under the crushing of God or under the weight of who he called you to be. It don't mean that, right? So I say to my friend, I think my career is about to come to an end. I don't know why, but I feel this. I wake up one January morning. I'm headed to Chick-fil-A. This is when I was still eating chicken. And I knew that I needed to move to Texas. This is January 2023. I don't have no connections in Texas. There's no reason that I'm in Texas. My family is in Chicago. And I'm clear, I don't want to move back there. But I wake up and I know you need to go to Texas. I don't know why, but I also know if you go to Texas, you're about to end your career. I don't know the timeline, but I know it's going to end, right? Because they're not letting me teach remotely forever. They're not, right? So I come to Texas in March 2023 to find places. I don't know why I'm moving. I'm just moving. And I found a place, signed a lease for July 2023, because that is when my lease ends in Vegas. Now, let me tell y'all how the struggle of moving from Vegas to Texas was. So I give away my apartment in Vegas. And by give away, I mean I give away everything. Only thing I did was pack up my car and ship my clothes and stuff like that. I was supposed to ship my car, but somehow the brokers who do the car shipping could not find anyone to take up the load of my car from Las Vegas to Dallas, Texas. Even though I had booked so many months in advance, they mean to tell me at the last minute that no one was coming this way. I understand what spiritual warfare is. I understand what resistance looked like. And I understand that I'm supposed to be at a certain place at a certain time. What did I do? I got my butt on the road and drove 17 hours alone. 17 hours. I have a brother who lives in New Mexico. So I drove 8 hours from Vegas to New Mexico, took a rest, and then I drove the rest of the way by myself, not knowing why am I picking up my life in Vegas and headed to Dallas. I don't know why. I know that I'm supposed to be here, like I know my name. And I want to say this, because some people are like, if you want to know God's voice, read the word. If you want to hear from him, read the word. And I understand that. That is a very good assertion. But you want to know how you know God's voice, you practice his voice. You practice hearing and obeying it. The reason why I knew I was supposed to be in Texas this year is because I did all of these things to practice and see, am I hearing this thing correctly? All of those years before. So just because God tells you to do something does not mean you're going to have the easy way out. It does not mean that it's going to be roses and a great journey. When he tells you to do something, there's still going to be giants in the land. Read the Bible. There's still going to be things that oppose you and resist you. You're still going to get your feelings hurt. But the promise is that you will be victorious. That is what the promise is. And so we cannot tell people that just because they're experiencing a hardship in obeying God, that it wasn't the will of the Lord. Someone told me, like, you need to go back to Chicago because it's not God's will for you to be in Texas. You don't even know me to say that. And wouldn't it be erroneous of me to know that I have followed God and I'm in the place that I'm supposed to be in, and I listen to a complete stranger tell me that I am in error? That's my life on the line, not this person. So you practice obeying the word, God's voice to you. That's how you become more confident in it. And my move to Texas to leave my career, everyone wasn't in support of that. It don't make sense. It didn't make sense. I am a girl from the south side of Chicago, a first generation graduate. I'm in my career. You gonna give that up because you said God asked for it? And for anyone to say God wouldn't do that, how do you explain God asking for other people's stuff in the Bible? How do you explain God telling Abraham to leave your father's house and go to a land I will show you, but first you got to leave? You got to leave, and then I'm going to show you. I'm not showing you until you leave. How do we explain all of these things? And someone said God won't close one door without opening another one. Show me that in the Bible. When he told Peter to get out that boat, did he open another door? No, Peter had to try to walk on water, and then Jesus came out and tried to save him, right? So show me that. I think that we should not say those Christian things to people that's just not true, that causes them to doubt the voice of the Lord. It's not right. It's not right. Okay. I'm grateful I'm strong enough to be like, oh no, I already know. Like, I know where I'm supposed to be. So thank you. We didn't already process this and all this other stuff. But I also saw someone say, like, oh, were there confirmations? Yeah. There were prophetic words from 2018 that pointed to this moment that I didn't even know about until I went back and listened to them. And I was like, oh, that's what you was talking about. Way before I got to this moment in 2024. So not only am I where I'm supposed to be, I'm when I'm supposed to be. But that doesn't mean that the journey will be any easier of waiting on God to show me the next step. That doesn't mean that, y'all. That doesn't mean that. So I moved to Dallas, right? I moved to Dallas at the end of July 2023. So I've been here over a year. And I'm still teaching remotely in Vegas. I'm supposed to go up for tenure in 2024. So I negotiate with my department chair, and I get permission to teach remotely in spring 2024. So this last semester, right? January to May. And somehow I check my portal in September and they have me scheduled for an in-person class. And I'm like, I ain't gonna be there because there's no way. Because I was already flying back and forth to Vegas every month. That was taxing. But I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna be flying back every week. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, we can't do that. And so I talked to her and I'm like, hey, I got clearance and, to be able to teach in the spring 2024. And she said, yeah, but there is some administrative pressure. They say we can't give someone a total remote schedule. And so you're going to have to be in person. Before we had that conversation, I was asking God, when would I have to resign? Because for me, I'm like, I can ride this out and get tenure and it's going to be just fine. But he never said anything. He never told me like the season, the time frame that I was going to have to resign. And he did that really great because I probably would have hesitated just a little bit had he told me that it was going to actually happen in September. So I had this discussion with my department chair and I said, hey, can we have a real conversation? She said, yeah. I said, I think it's time for me to leave. And I told her all of some of the concerns I had about, still living in Vegas, how I wasn't really feeling connected to the work and all of this other stuff, right? And she's looking at me like, girl, what you talking about? Like, your tenure case is set. You have gotten glowing reviews towards tenure. All you got to do is submit the application and we will go ahead and unanimously give you tenure. So I'm having this conversation. I said, but don't say anything yet. I'm still thinking about it, but I think I'm going to resign. So as my boss, she said something anyway to the dean, right? And so she calls me back. Hey, we don't want to see you go. We got 3 offers for you. And here are your 3 offers. One of the offers was to hold my position for a year. Hold my position for a year. Y'all, they're gonna let me go off and do what I want to do because maybe they felt I was tripping. But they were gonna hold my position for a year because I've done the work. I am a good steward of my gifts, right? And that is when I heard God say, "No, you're not doing that." Because anybody else would have been like, "Oh, for sure. If something don't pop with God, I'm going back to my career. I got it for a year, you know." And guys, no, you're not, because you're going to be holding up someone else's destiny. So I told her, like, no, I'm not going to accept any of these positions. So that meant that in November, I had to go have an exit interview with the dean. This is before I submit my written resignation. I had to have my exit interview with the dean. I'm sitting in the dean's office and she's looking at me and I'm looking at her and she's like, "I don't understand. Help me understand, please. You're the type of faculty member that we want to keep. You are the future of the department. We recognize your work," like all of this stuff, right? The only thing that I could say to this lady was that the people that I'm called to now are not behind the academic paywall. That's the only thing that I could muster that an academic who's not necessarily a believer would understand. So I'm saying this with tears in my eyes. I am giving an exit interview crying because I don't want to do it. Nevertheless, not my will, but your will for me. Fast forward to December, I submit my written resignation. This was on a Wednesday. If you scroll back to the podcast, on YouTube to January, I show the moments as I am talking through me writing the resignation. If you scroll through the community tab here, you all see my written resignation. And I show the rawness of the journey. I resigned on a Wednesday. On a Friday, there was a mass shooting on campus. This is why I know God protects you when you obey. When that man shot those people, he didn't shoot students, he shot faculty. I would have been in that building at that hour teaching at that moment. And it could have been me. It could have been me had I not obeyed and come to Dallas and not been in Vegas at the time. So yes, it wasn't by happenstance that I wasn't there. This was God protecting me and me obeying into the protection. It could have been me. I would have been there. That was the building I taught in. He wasn't targeting students. He was targeting faculty. You don't know what God protects you from. You don't know. You don't know. You don't know. So I submit the resignation on Wednesday. The shooting is on Friday. On Monday in the portal, it says terminate Brianna. And that was shocking to me because I'm like, dang, I resigned. Y'all didn't terminate me. I resigned. However, though I resigned, I still had 6 months. I still had 5 months 6 months on my contract, right? And get this, y'all. Not only did I have 6 months on the contract, they still owed me another year on my tenure clock. So even though I did not go up for tenure, I still would have had another year of funding that they owed me just because that's how my contract worked. Yeah. So anyway, from January to June, I was processing this leave, right? You don't leave something so important that you worked your whole life for without grieving it. You don't leave without walking through the fire of it and questioning, like, did I do the right thing? Because now it's too late for me to return back. Once I submitted that written contract, the door is closed, right? They already hiring my replacement. And, you know, I walked people on the podcast through the realness of that journey, because unlike some people who are already in the spotlight or whatever the case may be, and I want to be clear, I don't want the spotlight. I'm just trying to rise in destiny. I didn't get the privilege of being processed in private. I was already in the middle of building something. And so as I'm building something, people are looking at my eyes like, this girl ain't okay. And I'm like, no, y'all, I'm not okay. And the community on my YouTube page are people who we've journeyed together through all of these milestones, right? And I'm still showing up teaching. I'm still talking about the goodness of God. I'm still doing this. And so some people were saying in the video, like, this journey with God is not about what you get. And who said it was about what I get? If you just look back at the page, y'all see it. I'm committed to my destiny. That moment that YouTube pushed, and I don't know why they pushed it, but they pushed it, was not a moment that I wanted pushed. It just got pushed. And I'm grateful it got pushed because I see some people who were struggling with taking themselves off this planet. And now knowing that, oh, I'm not alone here. Maybe I have some hope because if Brianna can make it through this moment, maybe I can make it too. And so I'm grateful that it reached those people. But I just want people to understand it's not just God's gonna I want God to do this thing and he upset me. No, I've been journeying with this thing. I've been 10 toes down in this thing. I've been walking this thing out with fear and trembling. And it doesn't get easier because as you go from glory to glory and as you go from faith to faith, the asks from God get harder. He asks you for more, and you have to be willing to give up more. So y'all know what I'm saying? So I wanted to provide some context. Okay. So for the last semester, y'all know, and I don't know if y'all know, like I not only taught undergrad, I was teaching graduate students, master's and PhD students. And someone asked me in the video, how do I know I'm a doctor? Did God tell me? I have an earned PhD. And I'm not trying to be funny. I just wanted to clarify, like, I do have an earned PhD and I got the student loans to show it. So God didn't tell me I was a doctor. I went to school for the 3 degrees. Okay. Where else was I? Okay, so for 6 months, I'm teaching graduate classes remotely. I am sitting on dissertation committees. I'm doing the things, but I'm still grieving, knowing that I still have to work here, knowing that I've resigned. So my colleagues know I've resigned, right? I'm still having to show up and hurt, but show up in excellence because you don't leave any place raggedy. I'm still committed to the work to the last day of my job. I was committed to the work. I was doing the work. This is what I was paid to do. I did it. And so, the end of June comes and July 1st, I take a month off. I left the country and I'm not, I'm someone who will leave the country by myself. I've done it multiple times and I left the country. I was tired. I was like, just, reality hit at that moment. Like, now you out here. Now you walking on water. You've left the boat of security. And it's so funny that when I look back into the prophetic words that I have in my phone recorded, someone said to me, they said, I'm going to try to recall it. They were like, there's going to be a time within the next 2 or 3 years where there's going to be a decision before you. Do I stay as a tenure track professor or do I take the risk factor and go all in with God? And you will choose well because you would be like the sons of Issachar who discerned the times and seasons. This was 2 to 3 years prior. So when that decision came up, God recalled, we already told you. We were already preparing you for this. Or in 2021, when this man said, I see you in this high-rise building and God is going to move you to this place. And at the time I wasn't living in a high-rise building. He's like, I am now. But he was like, God's going to move you to this place and it's going to be foreign for you. And though you're not going to have any connections and there's not going to be any reason as to why you're there, know that he's moving you there. And not only he's moving you there to build you first, and then he's going to build the audience for you. So for the people who ask, were there prophetic words? Yes, but let me tell you, prophetic words, sometimes people are so far into the future, right? They're so far into the future that sometimes you have to be able to walk your way back. So yes, there was confirmation, but even if there wasn't confirmation, I know God's voice like I know my mama's voice when she called me because I spend time with him. And I pray. And when people say, like, did you fast? Every day. For 6 months, I fasted. 1 meal a day. I was always having for 6 months, 1 meal a day. I went raw vegan. People journey with me through that for a month. Or raw food for a month. So I have no problem bringing my body under submission to hear God. This is not a hearing. This is not a hearing test that I'm walking through. This is a submission test. It's not hearing. I heard what you said. I've heard you the entire way, right? I've heard you. I know your voice because I've been following your voice. This is me staying in the fire. Don't try to numb this pain. walk this way. This is your cross. This is your journey. And when y'all saw me crying, this is like, man, I hope that I would be out of this process already, right? I had hoped it would be over. And the day after that video went viral, it was over. The day after. Now, mind you, I talked about a dream I had. And I know a lot of people like tried to comment and tell me the interpretation of the dream. Y'all, I know the interpretation of the dream. But I know y'all don't know. I know the interpretation of the dream. I come from, on my mother's lineage, witches. My daddy's lineage, Masons. I got it on both sides. Okay. The men on my daddy's side are not successful. That thing is landing on them. The women on my mother's side are all single mothers. That thing was landing. I know for the last few years that I've been migrating in my dreams through this family house. And the family house has housed 4 generations of people at the same time. At one point in my life, my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mother, and me lived in this house. So I understand that this house is a generational house. And over the years, as I've started walking out of the curses and started, renewing the covenants to God and all of these things, I've migrated through different rooms of the house. And then finally, a few weeks ago, the house was completely like remodeled, and I was standing out in front of the house. I'm like, man, that used to be my house. So this not even my house no more. Other people live in that house. It don't even look like the same house no more, right? That lets me know that I'm out of that. That's done. That house was a generational curse that was landing on me, and I had to fight my way out of it. I don't do witchcraft. I don't do manifestation. I don't do that. I do the blood of Jesus, and I do the cross. You know what I'm saying? And I follow principles. And so when people say, did you break do the altars? Yes, I am well versed in spiritual warfare, y'all. Well versed, but that don't mean they ain't trying to take me out. You could be well versed too. They still gonna try to take you out because it's just not about you. They trying to take out everybody else after you. So if it was just simple as you getting out, okay, they could probably afford one casualty. They can't afford the rest of the lineage getting out, y'all. You know what I'm saying? And so I did all of the things. I am doing all of the things. I thank you all so much for the encouragement, but I want y'all to know that still is not going to stop the experience that you go through. And so I mentioned that the day after that video went viral, it shifted. My life shifted. And what I mean is that I had been asking God, because I am like a doer. I can do the works. I don't struggle with doing things. Sometimes I struggle in the area of prayer. I don't maybe pray as forcefully as I should because I'm not just like this natural forceful person. My mama, she gonna pray down heaven and hell, right? She the fighter. I'm more of a like, all right, let's reason together. Let's have this conversation, things like that. But God had been teaching me to war from a place of authenticity, not what I heard anyone else say, not what I've seen them do, but teach me how to put on my own armor and what my armor is and how it looks and how I should move in the spirit. Like, teach me. So a few days before that video, I asked the Holy Spirit, teach me what to say. Apparently, these words I'm saying, they ain't hitting, right? So I need you to teach me the words to say to win the battle. I need to know the words. What's the words? And so I remember, and I said this in the teaching on breaking generational curses in the kingdom. So I did that teaching on Thursday morning. So if you want to see that, I walked you through the kingdom way. That's right there in the Bible on how to pray. But one phrase that kept coming up in my prayer time, and I didn't know why, was double jeopardy, double jeopardy, double jeopardy. And I kept repeating, like praying against double jeopardy. And y'all know I'm not no lawyer. I was an English major. That's a legal term, double jeopardy. And so it was when I started to study the parable that I taught on, and then I started to understand how legal actions began to work. I understood why the Holy Spirit was leading me to pray against double jeopardy, right? It's the enemy trying to try you for a case that Christ already died for. This is why he stands before God day and night accusing you, because under double jeopardy, there are exceptions, right? There are exceptions to the rule. And It is when you sin that you come from under the blood that he has legal right to accuse you, and those curses have legal right to land. So I'm praying against double jeopardy. If Christ died for my sins, for this sin, and you told me that the lamb was slain since the foundations of the world, and then you also told me that the kingdom was prepared for me since the foundations of the world, that means that the lamb's blood should cover my sins, but also the kingdom should step in to absolve the stress, the expenses, the outrage that I feel. So when I started to say the word back in prayer, that same day that that video went viral, because I uploaded and I went off the internet, that is when the next day everything started to shift for me. I tell you this to say, sometimes it's not just pray about it. You have to be strategic in the realm of prayer. I had to learn this lesson, and I'm still learning this lesson. It's in the Bible. It's not enough for people to say things to you. It wasn't enough for me. I hear what y'all church folks saying. I hear it. But if I feel like it's not working, that means I'm missing a step somewhere. And because I go to the place of, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Show me where I have erred, where I've erred. Show me where I'm wrong. And help me get the results, because I'm leaving here with something. If I'm going through this battle, I'm getting something. Y'all know what I'm saying? And it was then is that I learned that I was praying incorrectly, and what the parable of the persistent widow, which is the parable that I taught us from the legal perspective, what she kept saying was, avenge me of my enemy, avenge me of my enemy. That's what she kept saying to the judge, right, in that parable. And it wasn't her persistence that avenge, and I now break it down in the teaching, but the word avenge means basically like persecute, prosecute, punish my enemy. And if you look up enemy, it means a legal opponent in a court of law, a legal opponent in a court of law. So though God is not legalistic, the spiritual realm is. It operates on laws, principles, and rules. So if your enemy has been charged under the law and he stands before the judge day and night accusing you, that means he's bringing accusations against you under the law. I'm not supposed to be under the law because of the blood of Jesus. However, when I sin, whether it's commission or omission, I've uncovenanted myself from the blood. So legally, this curse has the right to land. My enemy has the right to oppose me. But it's when I started to pray according to the Holy Spirit, not just what people told me to do, because it may have worked for you. It may not work for me, because our lineages are different. I come from witches. I come from Masons, right? So I need more tailored prayers. I need more tailored strategy. And when I got the tailored strategy from the word of God, and I took it in prayer, and I said, Holy Spirit, pray through me. And I prayed some of them dangerous prayers that I don't be praying often. The oppression shifted. The weight lifted. Everything shifted for me. And so I tell you all this, and I want, and also if you got any questions, drop them in the chat, because I'm more than happy to answer it. But I wanted to bring everyone I wanted to catch all of the new people up. You know what I'm saying? Catch you up, because I didn't want you to think that I'm just going to continue dropping content, but I am without addressing the elephant in the room. And so what you can look forward to, I want you to subscribe to my mailing list. It's pinned up there at BriannaWhiteside.com. But on Sundays, I drop a podcast. On Mondays, we have the Kingdom Living Morning Show. That's Monday Morning Inspiration. Tuesdays, we do Strategy Tuesday from the Word of God. Wednesdays, on the blog, there's some type of blog going to be released. Thursdays, I do a kingdom teaching, whether live or pre-recorded. Fridays, I let you chill. Saturdays, a blog. My guest writers write on the blog. I want you all to know that video was not me trying to get subscribers. I've been in this. I've been journeying. I've been building the kingdom. I've been giving the word of God. And where I'm more open to give stories, in my opinion, is on my podcast, not when I'm teaching. And so you would notice that when I'm teaching, I don't have an opinion. This is what this Bible says. This is how we're going to learn about it. You don't need my opinion. When I'm on my podcast, I'm going to tell you majority of my business and how I feel about it and how I think it's wrong. So I think, let me look at my notes, because I went around the world and I need to see if I've told you everything. Yes. Okay, I think we're good. All right, so let me look in the chat real quick. Let me look in the chat real quick and see if y'all got any questions for me. Drop them in the chat if you do. Detroit says, thank you for sharing your journey with us. You're beautiful and strong, and God is always going to have your back. Thank you for saying that. I believe that. Hey, Vintage to Sewing Time. Are you from the Bronx? No, I am from the south side of Chicago. I am from the hood. Okay. I'm from the ghetto, to be honest. And I know it don't look like that or sound like that, but that's only because one, I had a strict mother. And sometimes I tell this story like I'm from the part of the hood where gangbangers have ran up in my crib and took somebody out. Like I'm from down there. You know what I'm saying? Like I've seen someone get their life taken from them. Like I'm from that hood. And but I had a strict mother. She was a teenage mom, but she was a strict mother. She, modeled the faith. And I left Chicago at 18. I left at 18 and I never came back. I lived so many other places. And so you may be noticing the result of me living in so many other places. Like when I left Chicago, I went to Mississippi and then St. Louis and then Alabama, then Vegas, and now in Texas. And so I've uprooted my life a lot of times. But Texas feels like home. So I think this is home for me. Man, do you hear me? This walk is not for the weak. It ain't for the weak. It'll snatch your edges back. And that lets you know you're doing it right. And that reminds me, someone asked me, like, did the Bible says, did you, to count the cost? Did you count the cost? Yeah, you count the cost on what you can, but you can't count the cost on the fine print. You know what I'm saying? On what you don't know. I counted the cost of me uprooting my life, leaving my career. So I knew I would have to be financially set or fine or know how to go get to the money, which I said in the beginning. I know how to trade options. I'm great at investing. Like I do this stuff, right? And so I did count the financial costs. I don't think there's any way that you can count a spiritual cost because you don't know what's facing you until you get into it. And while I had some type of understanding of what was facing my lineage, I did not know how intense the war would get until I actually stepped into the battle. You know what I'm saying? And so you can count the cost to up until what you understand, and then the rest you're at the mercy of God, to be honest. So yeah, such an inspiration. We understand. Let's see. Yes, transformation is painful. Being obedient doesn't look like the same process as the world's definition of success. I totally agree. Jenny says, I need your help. Can you tell me what you need my help on, girl? I'm open to help if I can. I've never been here, but God brought me here. Ayana, welcome, Ayana. I hope you're still here. I hope you're still here. Mapfire says, when you will be content in his way, you will find joy in submitting to his will for you, and you will be at peace. I like this. I received that. And I think that it is a journey for me. I'm not even going to say that I've made it because, as you know, his ways aren't our ways. And he's taking me to the scenic road. And I'm like, we could have got on the expressway. You know what I'm saying? We could have went a little bit further. So I received that. I am not in resistance to that. I am learning to find joy in submitting, but it is not easy for me right now. Shalita says, your video entitled I'm Fighting for My Life has been showing up on my YouTube feed for at least a week, and I understand why you've gained a new follower. Thank you, girl. I dropped that video on Tuesday. Yes, I dropped that video on Tuesday. I was supposed to drop the podcast on Sunday, but I was in my feelings because let me tell y'all why I was in my feelings. 1 second, I need some water. On Saturday, I said, I'm going to get out the house. Now, I've been in this spiritual fight for a few months now. So I said, I'm going to get out this house. I'm going to go take myself to get something to eat. So I get all cute and it's about 7:30, almost 8. And I'm about to head to the restaurant. I'm headed to the restaurant. All of a sudden my check engine light come on and I'm like, oh no, please. Cause I'm someone who freaks out if a light comes on in her car. I don't like it. And then I said, please, no, please. Then as I'm driving, my car starts shaking. It's night. It's dark out. My check engine light on and my car is shaking and I am shook. So I'm driving slow and I'm like, well, maybe I just need to pull over somewhere to turn it off and turn it back on. No, it starts shaking even worse. And I am scared. I'm shook. So I just pray like, Lord, just let me get back home. Cause I wasn't too far from my house at the time. Let me get back home. So I come back home. The next day I take my car in and the people, my car repair was $2,500. Let me just say that. It's not the point that I had to pay for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I didn't have it. I had the money to pay for it. It was the point that all of this stuff happened. This seems suspicious to me. To me, this feels like a spiritual attack to continue to try to steal my peace, right? And it did. It succeeded in that moment. I was like, golly. Okay, we got the car fixed. It wasn't an issue. But I was still in my feelings about it because I'm like, come on, God, like I did what you told me to do. Like, come on now, like, come on, right? Come on. Well, yeah. And I did not drop the podcast on Sunday. Even, somebody on my team was like, hey, are we doing a podcast? I'm like, nah, scratch that point. We ain't doing the podcast. But I felt convicted. So I had gotten up that day to record an entire different message on walking in authority. And I sat down where I'm sitting right now and I turned on the camera. And that's when you saw the video. Because I was about to get up there and lie. I was about to get up there and try to encourage people over this very real feeling that was at the surface for a few days. And I just said, I can't get up here and lie like that. I can't get up here and pretend that I'm not walking through one of the greatest tests of my life. I'm just going to tell the truth. And I just thought that my regular viewers were going to see it. There is no description in that video. There are no tags. I didn't even try. I dropped it and got off. And then it was pushed by YouTube or it was pushed by God, and I don't like that moment was pushed as far as it is pushed. But, that's why I titled this live, Be Careful What You Ask For, because it's not what I want. It's not what I want. It is what people need to hear. And now people also can hear about the goodness of God and the kingdom. And don't get me started on the kingdom. That's my thing. But I'm not talking about going to heaven. I mean like the kingdom experience. And that is what I'm committed to figuring out, how we get in it, how we unlock it, all of the things. And so if you're interested in that, just check out the 2 playlists that are on this channel. But welcome over here. Pastor Lynn says 100. Hey, Pastor Lynn. Yonia Distributors. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. How are you? Ask, how am I doing? I am okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for asking. Truth Seeking with Veronica says, same here. It didn't make sense and still didn't, but I'm here. I'm glad you're here. Oh, she says, I had to resign from being an instructor also. Love hearing your story. Thank you. Lashes Journey, is that how you say it? I don't know. Hey girl, hey, how you doing? Vintage says that's the reason you do not always tell folks what God is saying to you, because if it does not make sense to them, their mission would then be to discourage you. I agree. And y'all know what? Before, I only told 2 people. When God told me and I knew I was going to have to resign, I told 2 people. And even those 2 people was like, you sure? But they never discouraged me. Now, my mom was like, go pray about it, fast about it, because she's seen me in this journey. You know what I'm saying? And she has my best interest at heart. And she's like, girl, I already know what this finna do to you. Make sure that this is God, right? And those 2 people were not as discouraging, but they were cautious for me. And I appreciate their caution. And then I made the decision. And then after I made the decision, and maybe like 2 months later, I told people, and that is on the podcast too. If you go back to January, my whole resigning experience is the month of January. But they were very like, what? That don't make sense. Why would you do that? And remember, y'all, I come from poverty. We ain't have nothing for real. You know what I'm saying? Like, I come from the hood. And so if you have seen me, right, make it into my career and succeed, then you like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? That don't make sense. That ain't God. But I'm like, it is. It is. I'm trying to walk on water. It is. And because I never have a plan B, I just have to run plan A. I gotta run plan A. And even if I'm running it with tears in my eyes, I'm still running the play. Right. And so I said in the beginning, I haven't had a lot of opportunities, but I've made the most of the opportunities that I've had, and they've always hit. I've had to see it through, but they've always hit. Let's see what we got. Obedience better than sacrifice. God is awesome. They always push negative stuff. Just saying, yeah, YouTube, the algorithm does push negative stuff because I'm like, man, this was weird. I'm saying talking about the goodness of God in every other video, but this is the one y'all push. That's so weird to me. I don't know why they do that. But I mean, if they did it and you're here and you're able to grow with me, welcome. But I don't know. I don't know why they pushed that. I wish they wouldn't have. Let's see what we got in the chat. Let's see. Okay. Do you feel more grounded in faith since releasing how you felt? You are beautiful and loved by the Lord. Keep your faith strong. Okay. Do you feel more grounded in faith since releasing how you felt? You know what? Yes. And I won't say grounded because I was already grounded. I think I feel more committed to the journey than I did, right? I was just really getting weary in well doing. I was getting weary in building and, doing all the things that I was doing and the resistance. Like I've been getting my head knocked off spiritually as I'm trying to progress, right? And so I was trying to fight through those feelings, but a part of me felt like those feelings were wrong to feel. You know what I'm saying? And no one told me that they were wrong to feel, but this was just like me saying, like, how dare you feel this way? Like God gave up, Christ gave everything for you. Like the religious thoughts that we try to play this religious game in our minds. And I'm like, you feel you wrong for this. Like you chose this, Brianna. You know what I'm saying? God gave you an opportunity. He didn't force it on you. He gave you an opportunity and you took it. So you need to suck it up, buttercup, right? And so that's a form of me not being kind to me, But after I told the truth on myself, because I believe in, y'all know, they say this is the year of exposure. And I believe that I should expose myself. God ain't got to expose me. I'm just going to tell on myself. Once I told on myself, I was like, I feel better. You know what I'm saying? Like, yep, you need to go ahead and get that out and keep building. You know what I mean? And so the next day, what happened? Showed up and talked because my feelings don't make the word of God null and void. You know what I mean? Like my human experience and my feelings does not disqualify the sovereignty of God. This is me having a human experience. This is me standing under the weight of who he called me to be and trying to learn how to walk in this thing. This is me at the beginning of a journey, And so once I got that out of the way, I was like, all right, now we back to the work. That's just how it had to go. I'm committed to the work. So yeah, I love this question. Okay. Lamir, I hope that's your name. That's how you say your name. You said, I believe God brought me here. Your background matches a lot of mine, and I'm in this season. You have taught me a lot, and I started watching you today. I'm glad you started watching me today, and I'm glad that you're learning. My goal on this channel is to help us grow, not to trauma dump. Now, that video felt like a trauma dump. I was like, oh, Lord. But it's to help us actually grow and to help us actually figure out what the word says. So it's not enough for, and this is me. Of course, people say you need to read your Bible. It's not enough to read your Bible because you have to study it. Now, I have a background in research, so it's easier for me to sit down with my concordance and with scholarly articles and with the word of God and with the Holy Spirit to synthesize all of this information to teach a message, right? To actually teach a message that's going to give you actionable steps. That's easy for me, but that's my mantle. I was created to be a teacher. So whether I'm in the academic classroom, and I love being a teacher. I don't want to be nothing else. I love being a teacher. But whether I'm in the academic classroom or not, I love teaching. And so if you learn something and you take away keys on how to use it for your life, I've done my job. I've done my job. And never, y'all, and I want y'all to know this because everyone who's been following me know, I'm never going to hype you up. I'm not. I'm going to always tell the truth. I'm going to rightfully divide the word. And if you don't like it, I'm going to tell you, rip it out the Bible because it's right there. If you don't like it, rip it out. And I know you're not going to do that. So we're going to believe the whole Bible or we going to believe none of it. Right. And unfortunately, I think that the whole like maybe motivational speaking that's been passed off as the word of God is kind of warped us a little bit. So when things happen, we don't know how to fight. We don't, right? And that's not what I want. And so I'm committed to doing my contribution, just like I'm committed to doing the contribution in academia when I was in there. I'm doing my part. And so I'm so glad you're learning something. Phoenix said, I didn't have a personal question yet, but I'm learning about the Sabbath. What does it mean to keep the Sabbath holy? I have not done a study on that, Phoenix, and that's not something that I'm really concerned about, to be honest. I just got to be honest. Some things are just out of my purview. And so if you're interested, I definitely encourage you to study it out. Sherlinda, I hope I'm saying that, Miss Wilson says, your faith should say, your faith should say, your faith, should I say, obedience to God is amazing to me. I'm hoping and praying for that kind of obedience. And you can have that kind of obedience. You can have that. And here is how. When God asks you to obey, no, here's what I'm going to say. And I'm going to, hold on one second. I am going to say this. And this is what I say to my younger siblings, because I'm the oldest of 5. You're going to pay. We're all going to pay in this life. You're either going to pay on the front end or you're going to pay on the back end, but you're going to pay. The way that I live my life is that I try to pay on the front end because I don't like to pay interest. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I don't like credit card debt. You're going to have to pay. I don't want to pay interest. So I pay my price up front so I can live better on the back end. And some people like, I don't want to go through that test. I don't want to go through that trial. I don't want to do that. But understand, like, the price is the price. The price never changes. The only thing that changes is the interest you pay with delay, right? So it costs you to be you. It's going to cost you. You're going to have to pay the price to be you. When you pay the price is the only thing that matters, that changes how much you pay. So when God asked me to obey, and I don't know if you were on here in the beginning or not, he asked, the first step of obedience was studying the book of Esther. That's the first step of obedience. Let me go get my Bible and show y'all something real quick. One sec. Okay. So this is the Bible. This is the Bible that I study out of. It's been through it. So I study out of the KJV, but I also study out of the Oxford Study Bible. But I also, when I teach out of the NIV or read out of the NIV. But I want to show y'all my notes from the book of Esther. And this was me just learning about God on my own. But this is how like my studies look right here. Y'all see that? Right? My Bible done been through some things. So when I was studying, like, that's what it looks like. For the first time, like, I'm reading and trying to like understand what this stuff is. But this is because I'm a studier. Like, it just happens like that. And so it started with this Bible that's falling apart in 2016 with the book of Esther. That's the first step. That was a small thing. And then as I continue on, the asks and the obedience got bigger and more bold. And now you're seeing me at this point, but it started with something small. Something small. So you can build your way up to big obedience, but it just starts in the day-to-day obedience, right? And those small things that seem insignificant, that nudge to call somebody or, not call somebody or say something or not say something, that's how we build it up. So there's a practicality to this. So I believe that you definitely can. And I don't even think this is the first thing that God has asked me to obey. I mean, the last big thing that he's asked me to obey. But it is one of the big ones. It is one of the big ones. And so I encourage you to just start small, start where you are, and then eventually, be careful now what you ask for, but eventually you're going to get there. Okay. Abram says, praise the Lord. Dr. Brianna, are you available to do 1 or 2 day lectures at universities or online? I am. Can you send me a email at Brianna at BriannaWhiteside.com, or you could just go to my website, BriannaWhiteside.com, and fill out the response form there. Okay. Jay Turner says, girl, I'm in the same space. I love when people be like, girl. Y'all, I don't take myself too seriously. Y'all do not have to call me Dr. Brianna. I just say that, but you could call me Bree. I'm one from among you. I am one from among you. So I love when people are like, girl, I'm in the same space. I don't want to be here in Houston, but I can't leave because God told me to come here and I'm struggling. You know what? I spent 6 years in a place where I didn't want to be, and that was Vegas. I hated every bit of it. Oh, I couldn't wait to get out that desk. I hated Vegas. So I understand. Stay where you're planted. Pass the stay and test. Why this wig like this? Pass the stay and test. And then when God tells you to go, go. Don't leave a place prematurely because you hate it. But I 6 years in Vegas. Oh my God. Oh my God. All right. Shalinda says, I would love to speak with you. Your beginnings may be small now, but you're about to enlarge beyond your imagination. I believe that. That is true. And you know what's so funny about that verse, Shalinda? I am clear that was the verse that I was standing on. And I say that like in so many podcast episodes before the one that I just released, that is the scripture that I stood on. Your latter days will be greater than your former days. That is the word that I held on to and still holding on to. So you right on with that one, because that's the scripture. Okay, let me go back up. Okay. Jacqueline says, thank you for sharing your journey. Please pray for my daughter. She is a student, stepped out on faith and moved as well. This is one of the most challenging times. She needs housing. Okay, I can definitely do that. Jacqueline, what's your daughter's name? Also, if you go to BriannaWhiteside.com and you go to my shop, you may have to scroll down a bit. There's a free, I don't know if she's a graduate student or not, but there is a free devotional that I wrote specifically for people in college. It's for graduate students. Make sure you put in the code. I think it's like listed for 1 cent, but if you put in the code, it'll cancel out that 1 cent. And it's a digital devotional specifically for people in higher education. And so if she needs that free resource, it's right in my shop at BriannaWhiteside.com. Again, you're just going to have to scroll down in the shop. But I do know the intimate struggles of people in school. I do. So what's your daughter's name? I definitely will pray for her. And I'm also praying for everyone in the comments under that other video. Uvo says, crazy how the YouTube algorithm works. I watched you and then you did a video with Marcus. Oh yeah, what was that? Tuesday? This past February, right? Yeah. Marcus is my friend. Lemire says, I've also been learning to be transparent with my feelings in this journey while having human experiences. I voice them out to God, leaving no room for the enemy. Yep. I say them to God too. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like that. I'm going to say what I was just going to say because I need to teach that for Monday morning. But I don't know exactly where you are, and I think that's good to do. Need more. Ty says, need more real ones like that. Well, thank you, Ty. You know what? I have no reputation to save at this point. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to save face. I'm out here in the trenches with y'all. I don't think of myself as some high mighty leader. I'm one from among you. I'm your homegirl. I'm your sister. I'm your cousin. I'm out here. And I'm just someone God has decided to put his hand on to kind of lead people into more truth. But that's it. Like, nah, I ain't take myself too seriously. That's some advice that I got from my master's degree mentor, Black man. He used to call me Breezy because I used to breeze through things so quickly. He used to say, Breezy, don't take yourself too seriously. Keep that in mind, because some people in academia, they take themselves too seriously. Never take yourself too seriously. And I took that to heart. Like, yeah, while I do take my assignment seriously, I don't get wrapped up in, like, you know, mantles or titles, just the one I earned. Like, yeah, but that's only for, my students, or if you want to be formal with me, that's fine. But other than that, I'm Brianna or Bree. I could care less, to be honest. Okay. Lemire says, I also have a teaching mantle. What was your bachelor by the way? I'm getting my master's in English and will be getting my PhD in English. You want to know what's funny, Lemire? All of my degrees are in English. I have 3 English degrees: bachelor's, master's, PhD. I'm on the lit side of things. Yeah. And actually, and I think about this because even when I'm thinking about some of the hard lessons that I've had to learn, one of my hard lessons was teaching in prison. And I wasn't in prison, but I taught in maximum security facilities to Black men in Alabama for a year. And it was the time where I had to come face to face with some of my own biases, right? Yes, I was teaching at the University of Alabama, which is a relatively wealthy institution. But it was me teaching these Black men in maximum security facilities that humbled me. I think that I didn't realize that I had bought into some of the stereotypes, though I have big Black brothers who are from the hood, who walk in fear of their lives too, and their bodies too. Like, I think subconsciously I had bought into certain ideologies about them, not knowing that I did. And it was the hardest and most rewarding thing that I ever did with my time was teaching in prison. And I learned a lot about a lot of people's stories. That's why I don't judge people about their stories, or I don't cast premature judgments or anything like that, because I'm like, I understand how you got here. You know what I'm saying? And I'm thinking about my students, like, I understand how you got here. And I couldn't imagine a world reducing me to a number and stripping me of my identity and referring to me as inmate, whatever number this. I couldn't imagine that. And so it was when I taught these men, and I'm about to tear up because that junk is hard to reconcile with, but it's when I was teaching them that I realized just how cruel the world can be. And some of them were not in prison because of violent offenses. They were in prison on some trumped up drug charges. And I know this because I had access to their cases because they were in my class. I had, legally had access to their crimes. But it was like, yo, like this junk, like one of my former students had been in there since he was 15. 15? In a maximum security facility, 15? Anyway, it taught me compassion. It taught me to see the person. It taught me to listen, to hear, and not respond. It humbled me. It humbled me. And at the same time, and another reason that it humbled me was because, I don't know if y'all ever lived in Alabama or not, but the prisons are generally out of mind, out of sight. And I feel like that's in any state. They're out of mind, out of sight. You have to drive, to get there. And in Alabama, you have to get off of it's just not enough that this is the heart of some of the civil rights stuff, but you have to get off of the main road, main expressway, and then you have to go back roads. Now, I'm teaching, this year was around the time that Sandra Bland had died. So I get off the main expressway and I'm traveling like 45 minutes on the back roads of Alabama. I have no cell service, but I know that I'm traveling through Confederate territory because they got the Confederate flags. I'm looking at shanty houses. Like, I'm looking at all of the markers of a Confederate South. And I'm a Black woman traveling to the prison to do what I feel is my civil duty, right? And one morning, and this is in the morning, my class was a morning class. I had to drive an hour and a half to get to the prison. One morning, I drive through this white town that I was generally driving through, and I get stopped by the police. Now I'm shook. I don't play with the police. I don't ride dirty, you know. But I'm shook because I don't have no service. This black lady has just lost her life, and I'm like, I know that I still have Illinois license plates on my car. Though I was living in Alabama, I was a graduate student, but I still had my Illinois license plates on my car. Anyway, I get stopped. So I got this big Alabama prison arts shirt on because you don't want to be attractive in prison. You know what I mean? I got my Sealy braids and I have my University of Alabama parking decal in my window. And so he stops me. And the first thing he asked me was like, "What are you doing here?" And I was taken aback at that question because I was like, "Huh?" It didn't register like what he was asking me, but he's like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Huh?" And he's like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm headed to the prison to teach." And he's like, "Okay, well, give me your license and registration." So I give him this stuff, and I'm shaking. I'm shaking, not only just because I just got pulled over, but because another squad car has pulled up too. It's just me. I got my big orange Alabama Prison Arts and Education shirt, my hair braided in 2 braids to the back. I got my glasses on. I got my books that I got to teach to these students in this prison. And I'm just trying to do my work. Right? He comes back. He tells me, your registration isn't coming back. And I'm shook. I'm like, "What you mean? I'm not riding dirty. Like, these are the only places that I've ever been on this car. I bought this car brand new. I'm like, there's no way that it shouldn't come back." So he's like, "Sit tight." So I'm sitting tight. I'm scared. I'm shook. So he comes back and he says, "I'm not sure why, but are you a student? I see your decal. Are you a student?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Let me see your student ID." I give him my ID. And he says, "Okay, I'm going to let you go." And he says, "But will you be coming this way often?" I said, "Yeah, every Wednesday." And he says, "Do you need an escort?" And in my mind, I'm like, do I? You tell me if I need an escort now, because now you're saying the things that are causing me to believe I'm in danger now. Do I need an escort? And he was like, "No, we'll just look out for you. I'll tell the guys that you'll be this way every week." And I'm thinking to myself, what you mean? Because they told me if I went to school and if I stayed out of trouble and if I got an education, these type of things wouldn't happen to me. And I'm doing my civic duty. And you mean to tell me that my black body doesn't belong on these streets? I was shook. I left in tears. And there was nothing I can do because I can't turn around, right? I got to keep going with tears in my eyes, like, you are probably in danger. And if something happens to you on this back road, ain't nobody gonna know about it, right? And I get to the prison, and my of course my students know my face is flushed. I'm just like, I'm out of it. Right? Because I left the hood for this, right? I left the hood so my body wouldn't be in danger all the time. Get to the prison. There was this white lady. She referred to me as girl. I'm 26. I'm not a girl. I am teaching at the flagship state university. And this white lady called me a girl. And I knew the implications of that because I studied Black literature for all my degrees. And you don't know you don't know what you will do until you're in that moment, until you're like degraded and tried to be made less than because of the color of your skin, though you're doing your civic duty, though you're an upstanding citizen, though you make more money than her. You don't know. But I say all that to say that even though I had those experiences, it didn't compare to me going into the prison and trying to, in a sense, rehumanize the men who I taught. I never referred to them as their ID number. I referred to them as Mr. Whomever, right? And this is why my approach to people is not very cavalier or callous or, judgmental or in your face, because you don't know. You don't know. And it could have been me easily. One wrong decision, I could have been in prison. My brothers could be in prison. You know what I'm saying? One wrong thing, one trumped up charge, or you could not be here. You know what I mean? And so my approach to the faith, to people, is never like in this position of like, I'm superior or nothing like that. Like, nah, I have not made it. I have not arrived. I have some experience. I think we should be kinder to each other. And we should just be responsible. We should just be responsible. Walk his Walk his way says, question, how does it feel being famous? Marcus, get off, stop. Vintage to Sow in Time says, I saw that video this morning when I got up for my devotion, and I was crying right along with you. First time seeing you. I've not subscribed to a channel for months, but I feel compelled to subscribe. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for trusting me with your attention. I hope you learned something that will help you grow. I do. Thank you. Lovely Me says, my Bible been through it too. My Bible is toe up, y'all. This the good one. This the good one. I also think, and I've said this in a lot of lives before, like when I'm teaching y'all, the movie that just keeps coming before me is like the Book of Eli. And I don't know if y'all have seen the Book of Eli, but like I think the Bible was a very rare commodity in those days. And I just want to tell y'all, just get some more Bibles. Just get some more print Bibles. Because I think it's going to be important just to have print Bibles, because technology does something weird and they be taking stuff out of the word all the time. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so let me go back. Walk His Way says Vegas is great. I'm not dealing with that, Marcus. Phoenix says, okay, thank you. I really wanted to know about the Sabbath because that is the fourth commandment and felt like it was important. Just started watching and wasn't sure how far you were on your journey. Yeah, I'm pretty far on it, but some things I just don't have like maybe an interest in or appetite for, you know what I'm saying? And this is not to say that they're not, important. This is just saying that, my attention is not there. And so just like one of my brothers, he loves the weird and obscure in the Bible. He could tell you everything about Nephilims. He can tell you about times and seasons. He can tell you about atmospheres. He could tell you about all of that. And it's fascinating. It's just not my thing. My thing is more so of the kingdom teaching and what happens after salvation. And so I do think it's important. It's just not a focus of mine, to be honest. Let's see. Okay, see Andrea. Let me write her name down. Thank you, Jacqueline. She is an undergrad in Italy for almost 2 years. Okay, I got you. I'll pray for her. Let's see. Hey, Raining Wombin. I think that's what it says. Hey. If they would have ran my background and questioned me, they probably wouldn't have let me. Oh, man, that's so funny. Your story time and visiting the inmates was very interesting. Thank you. Sometimes the stories just come on up unexpectedly, but I feel like I've told this story before on different lives, but those experiences humble me. It taught me how to handle people with care. That's what it really taught me. It taught me how to handle people with care. Most Christians ignore Luke 21:25, which is astrology 101. I'm not sure what conversation is going on in the chat about astrology, but y'all carry on over there. Do y'all have any questions for me that is pertaining to what I'm talking about? Ovo says, is astrology biblical? I want to encourage you to study that. And this is the teacher in me. This is the teacher in me. I think we gotta, study it for ourselves. And I have my opinions on certain things, but I want y'all to study it and or maybe teach on it if that's what y'all feel compelled to do. You know what I'm saying? But that's just not something I talk about on my channel. Any questions about what I got going on? Just want to know. Just want to know. Good question. Blender tie. I'll look that one up. I think, you know what? Hip Hop Blender, Ovo, and Phoenix. I think y'all all should get together and do a study and then maybe teach on it. I think that would be great. You know what I'm saying? I think that would be great to do. Because sometimes when we have questions about stuff, y'all know it's so easy to go get someone else's opinion on it. And I've been guilty of just giving people answers. But as a teacher, I'm like, how about you tell me what you think? After you tell me what you think, I'll tell you what I think, and that's just me encouraging you to, study it to show yourself approved. So I think it's definitely a good idea for y'all to do that. Would you ever go back to teach in Christian prison again? Yes, I would. Even though it was hard work and you have to be aware of yourself in ways that you may not have to be aware of yourself in the academic classroom, I would. It was the most fulfilling thing that I had done. And at the same time I was teaching in prison, I was also teaching freshmen at the university. And so it was a night and day situation. It really, really was. It was a night and day situation. And yeah, I would definitely teach in prison again. Have you ever struggled with addictions? And I know addictions is like a very broad thing. And I could say, like, I think coffee could be an addiction. So yeah. Coffee. Yeah. Yes. I haven't struggled with like maybe the hot topic addictions that people would say, you know what I mean? Like the hot topic ones, drugs and things like that. No, I haven't struggled with addiction in that way. But that's just not, oh no, I haven't. That's not my temperament. I'm not bent to those addictions, to be honest. But no, by the grace of God, I haven't. Did you always want to be a doctor? No, girl. I always wanted to be a teacher, but I did not always want to be a doctor. Let me tell y'all how I ended up. Let me tell y'all how I ended up as a doctor. I was running from my familial history. And Lovely, this is going to answer your question. No, I come from a single parent, 17-year-old mother. No. Single mother. But I was running. So this is how I got out of Chicago. I wanted to get out of the hood. That was the only thing I wanted to do. I did not want to be a single mother. I did not want to be a statistic. I needed to get out. I went all the way to education, right? And so when I went away to school, even though I hated Mississippi, it helped me get out of the hood and witness a different type of culture and a different type of way of living. Now, at the first sight of getting out of Mississippi, I got on out of there. But I didn't even want to go to grad school. I just didn't have a plan B. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do after undergrad because I worked my entire way through undergrad. I had 2 jobs in undergrad and I was taking all of the courses. And by the grace of God, I graduated magna cum laude. And let me say, like, God has graced me to be ambidextrous, right? And so that means that I can work with 2 hands in a lot of ways, and I can do a lot of things at one time. And so I was working 2 jobs, and I was just focused on getting out of school. And I had finished a semester ahead, but they would not let me graduate for whatever reason. And so I was just taking filler classes, and I didn't have a plan. And I had not really heard about grad school. Mind y'all, I'm a first generation graduate. I'm not in the conversations I'm not in the room where people are getting mentorship, right? I didn't have a mentor until my master's program. That was the first time someone's ever walked hand in hand with me. And so I didn't know anything about graduate school. And someone was like, oh, you should go to graduate school. You're really good at writing and really good at English. You should go to graduate school. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll go to graduate school. And, I went to graduate school. I applied to one school and got in. That was Southern Illinois, Edwardsville. And I got in. And after I finished my PhD, in 2 years, my master's in 2 years, I was like, okay, what I'm gonna do? I can teach. But I learned like, okay, you're not gonna make a lot of money unless you have a terminal degree as an educator. And I knew I didn't have the temperament to teach high school or elementary school, right? So I said, okay, guess I'm gonna have to get a PhD. And it was just a fact of like, I guess I'm gonna have to do this. Okay, let's try this thing that I ended up becoming a doctor, but it was never my goal to get a PhD. It was never my goal to go through 10 years of schooling post high school. Never. Okay. But I did, and it was God guiding me through every step of the way. It was God guiding me through. And so this is when I say I've just walked the journey. I walked a very narrow path. I've only walked plan A my whole life. And it has not been easy. It has not. It's been very hard. But it has panned out every time. Every time. It's going to hit. And when it hit, it's going to hit big, but it take a little time to hit though. So no, I did it. Okay, let me go back to the questions. Am I only child? No, my mother has 5 children. I am the oldest, and my dad had 3 of us. One of my brothers took his own life in 2018, and so there are 2 of us now left on my dad's side, but I am the oldest child. How old were you when you felt established? I never felt established, ever. I never felt established. So I got into my career, if that's what you want to say. I got into my career at 28. But I never felt established. I think established is such a big word because it made me feel like you feel settled in something. And even though I pursued and achieved my childhood dream, I never felt settled in that dream fully because something within me was kind of like, don't get too comfortable here. This is not the end. And so though I was good at what I was doing and I was doing all the things, there was still like this, there's going to be an exit, this knowing. And it's so funny, right? Because what I'm stepping into now, I felt like God could have let me do it back in 2017 when I got into Princeton. And so if y'all look at the community tab, I posted, because that's one of the no's that I had to obey. I posted that I got into theology school at Princeton. And God was like, nah. And I'm like, bro, like, I kind of sense you're going to take me this way that you're taking me now here in 2024. I think it would be good for me to go to Princeton, go to theology school, go learn, what they saying, go with the scholars. And he's like, no. And I said, okay. That was another no I had to obey. So all of the no's or the come out, like they've been hard. Like of course, they seem good to me. Of course, it's going to be great. But then it's no, don't do it. Come this way. That's it. Okay, let's see. Have you ever felt masculine as a woman or felt too aggressive? Yeah. I had to do a lot of unlearning. And this was Jesus and therapy, right? When you make it out, when you're raised in a single parent home and you live in a hood, you in survival mode. I was because my mom worked 2 jobs, I was the second parent. So me and her didn't even really see each other in my high school years because she was at work, working at night. I was coming home from school or work or extracurricular. So, I was second in command. And so, of course, I'm having to assume responsibility for my siblings. And at the time, there were 4 of us. Yeah, the baby girl wasn't born yet. At the time, there were 4 of us. And so, of course, when you're in survival mode, you're putting on the weights that you're not supposed to take. It causes you to react and be a certain thing of. And of course, I'm in the hood, right? I got to fend for myself. It's dangerous. I got gangbangers living on other sides of the streets. There are shootouts going on. Like it makes you tough. Growing up in the hood in Chicago makes you tough. And I lived in survival mode for majority of my life. And it was about 2020, the world shuts down. Everybody got to start facing themselves. I started going to therapy, and I had to start looking at myself, because at some point I did pride myself on being a PhD, right? I was like, I got this, I'm this, I'm that, I'm ooh, ooh, ooh. And though I never fully bought into like feminism, and I'm not someone speaking on this like who doesn't know I've studied feminism, I've taught feminism in feminist classes. I don't think I fully bought into it, but I had taken on the nature of it in a sense, whether it's third wave feminism, second wave feminism, or the original feminist movement. I had taken on a certain nature just based off of my studies. And it made me hard. And it made me very masculine in a way, not in the way that I presented, but maybe in the way that I behaved or lived, I guess. 2020 happens. I start going to therapy. The mask starts falling off. I go through what feels like an identity crisis. And, it was that time where one of my brothers was like, Bree, we were trying to develop our relationship, get closer. And he was like, Bree, big sis, I love you. Right? Big sis, I love you. But man, don't no man care about that. And I'm like, what you mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, I got it together. He like, Bree, we care, but we don't measure women in the same way that y'all measure us. And I'm like, what you talking about, Willa? This is the first time I'm hearing this, right? Because I was in the echo chamber of women. I'm only hearing what women are saying. And he was like, we don't measure y'all the same way y'all measure us, because we're not looking for you for security. And I said, okay, you're probably right there. So I had to start to learn to listen to, like, I'm raised in a single parent home. I'm only hearing my mother speak, and, I'm learning from her. I'm not hearing my father. So, and then my family is heavily matriarchal. And so I'm only hearing strong women. And so naturally, you're going to be a strong woman. Like, that's just how it goes. And I'm still a strong woman, but it is not as aggressive or abrasive as I was. And so I know this maybe get some hate, but let me say this. I had to learn how to listen to men express themselves. I didn't have the willingness or the desire to hear them tell the truth, right? Because I didn't like to hear it. I didn't grow up hearing it. I didn't want to hear it. I'm like, whatever. But I said, something you're doing is not right. And if something you're doing is not right, then you need to listen to your brother who loves you. And now we don't agree on everything. But I felt in that moment him encouraging me to like listen to what I have to say. Just consider it, right? Then I'm like, okay. So I know y'all, then this is the part that makes it some hate. I know y'all don't like Kevin Samuels. And he is abrasive, trust me. But in me trying to learn to listen beyond the explosions and beyond the cadence and beyond the delivery, I heard some valuable things. And while I didn't agree with everything this man said, I had to train myself to listen to different men on the internet. This is not me agreeing. This is me listening, right? Listening to understand and not to respond. And so I went on, like, maybe for a few months, I went on this thing of just listening to people I didn't agree with, men I did agree with. Like, I had to start listening, and I could see like, oh, I've never really heard this perspective before. I never even had a desire to hear the perspective before this moment. But it was in the listening that I kind of, in some weird way, in addition to therapy, in addition to God, started disarming myself or taking off some of that armor that I had put up, because I had to make it out of the hood. I had to go get to the money, go and get to it, go and do it. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I still got to get to it. But it's not in this hyper masculine way that I used to operate in it. And so to answer your question, yes, I did. And yes, I was. And yes, I did turn off a lot of people because of that thing. But I've learned my lesson. And I think it's really great resting in femininity. Like, I think that's a superpower God gave us. And we need to rest in it, y'all. It's great. It's great. It's great. But let me say this, y'all. Let me say this too, to tell on myself even further. One thing that, and I don't know if I'm going into ministry or not. I hope I'm not, but maybe I will. Hopefully I won't, because I don't want it. But one thing that I told God that I didn't want to do is, like, I didn't want to be like an aggressive, masculine woman frontliner. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to, the people that I saw were just very like tough and very like, er. And I was like, I don't really want that. Like, I think that we could get our message across and not be like, you know? And so that's why my approach is always more on the back end. Like I come the back way in a lot of ways, and I come with care, and I come with no resistance, no defense. Instead of I'm in your face, I'm snapping my neck, I'm doing this because I could do that, y'all. I'm raised in it, and if I'm not careful, it comes up. I'm not gonna say I've been fully delivered from the neck rolling and the eye rolling, but I am working on it, and so I hope that has answered your question. That's a moment of truth. Tiff says, love your voice is soothing. Girl, that's the first time I heard that. Thank you, though. Do I have a lot of friends? No, I have really, really close friends. I have close friends. I have a great circle of friends, but they're not, I don't have a big circle of friends. I have people that I know. I have people that I consider acquaintances, but my inner circle is relatively small and some trusted people that have, been on the journey with me. Whew, okay, let's see. What age do you plan to be established? I am not walking by my own plan right now, so I can't tell you what plan I plan to be established because I'm in God's timeline now, and I'm on His time. So I wish I knew, and I wish I could say like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be established at 35. Y'all know I turn 35 next month. I'm gonna be established. I would love that. But the truth is that I'm out here walking on water. So I can't even answer that honestly. Do you feel comfortable where you are now? Like geographically, yes. Do you see yourself married with kids? Yeah, I do. You asked me what feminism means to me. That's a very nuanced question. I would have to give you a very nuanced response, and I just don't have enough time for it. It's a lot. It's a lot of very different things, and I don't think there's a blanketed way of defining feminism. As people have tried to define it, maybe to water it down or to beef it up. It is a very nuanced topic, and I want to encourage you, if you're interested in feminism, to study the origins of it, the second wave feminism, when Black women got into feminism, and then more specifically Black feminism. Tons of scholarly books out there, tons of resources out there for you to study and, maybe come up with your own opinion. Would you recommend therapy? 100%. I definitely recommend therapy, and it's not therapy is a supplement. It is not the end all be all. It is something that will help you unlock you. It was intimidating at first, and I didn't want to do it. But once I got into therapy in 2020, I stayed in it. Like, I need checkups. I need to figure it out because I didn't know how to articulate my feelings. Because as the oldest child, sometimes there's just no room for your feelings. And this is not something that my mother has ever said or my parents have ever said, but things got to get done. You got to move through it, right? And so as a result of years of moving through it, trying to get out of hood, being in survival, you just swallow stuff. And when it was time for me to articulate something other than anger, I didn't have the language for it. I didn't even know how to articulate it, or I didn't even know how to identify different emotions to say, I am sad, I am hurt, I am disappointed. I didn't have the language for that. And so if nothing else, therapy helped me see me and helped me see where not what someone else has done, but the holes in my life that needed more attention and more prayer. Sis Brianna, you are anointed and appointed woman of God and well qualified educated. Thank you. What are your thoughts about the need for prophetic higher education, accreditation, and Christian academia? Oh, that's such a big question. I think that everyone should go through learning and should go through schooling. And I think that we should probably get on the same page about particular trainings and things that are needed. When I generally look at prophetic communities, and to be honest, I'm not on the back ends of them, right? So I don't know the behind the scenes for real. But there is importance for people to actually learn about the prophetic, like not just be around it or experience it, but learn about the history, the journey, like certain things that people may not say, but encourage you to do. I think there is an importance to that because it helps you stay in alignment and it helps you not go rogue. And it also helps you just stay in purity in a lot of ways. And so I think, of course, as an educator, of course, I'm always going to lean on the side of education, especially when if you're touching so many people's hearts and minds and souls. And this is why I take what I'm doing on my YouTube stuff so seriously, because it's one thing to influence the mind. That's what I did in academia. It's another thing for me to influence your heart. And so many people are influencing people's hearts and just don't care. That's dangerous work. But I do think education is super important if we hope to rise and move further. It's so funny. I was talking to one of my pastor friends, and he went to seminary school. This isn't prophetic training, but it's in the vein of what you asked. And y'all know I just said that God told me that I couldn't go to theology school. But he went to seminary, and I was asking him, like, okay, were there any teachings on the kingdom? And he's like, oh, like the kingdom of God? And I'm like, yeah, like the kingdom, kingdom. Not what we just throw this phrase around, but are there any teachings about what this thing is, how it functions, what's your legal rights, stuff like that? He's like, no. And so he was like, I said, okay, so I've noticed that pastors generally who've gone to seminary, they generally teach in a certain pattern, like 3 points or, a certain time frame. And he said, yeah, we're told like 15 to 30 minutes. That's all you have to keep someone's attention. So don't make your teachings or anything beyond that. And I said, so if we follow that model, then we keep people in a state of ignorance. And he says, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, if you're saying only 15 to 30 minutes, that means that you're teaching elementary school. But they never graduate to undergrads or graduate students because you don't create the hunger or the tenacity to listen more, to learn more, to go the longer route. And so we're capping people at an elementary school level because you all are essentially doing your 3 points, running around a church, and no one has gotten transformation. And he says, yes. And I said, that's kind of dangerous work. Is it not? I'm not here to change the structure of preaching. I'm not a pastor. Y'all do y'all thing. But it was just a very fascinating conversation where I thought about, like, yeah, you're right. People generally do have short attention spans. However, if you go to college, you go from sitting in a 30, 40-minute class in high school to 90-minute classes if you have a Tuesday, Thursday class, or if you go to grad school, you're in the 3-hour class. You have to strengthen yourself and create the capacity to go the long route to get this degree. And so in the same way, I wonder why we don't do that same thing. And of course, we know people may not want to be in church all day, things like that. But I'm just wondering just about why we keep doing it. And it may not be working, or we may not be transforming people in the way that we could help them transform. Just those are my thoughts. But of course, I lean towards education always. So, okay, let's see. Crystal says, wow, look how God, through your brother, spoke to you to strengthen you more. Yeah, he cares about us so much. Heal those areas that we didn't recognize. You are a teacher, but also teachable. That's wonderful. I am, girl. And when I tell you, when I first tried to listen to the men speak, I was like, it sounded like Charlie Brown, like wah, 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 wah. Like I couldn't hear nothing. I was just like, ooh. And then hey Rudy. And then I realized, like, I was in an echo chamber for so long that I was only hearing women speak, and I didn't have an appetite to hear men speak. And I was like, yo, you kind of wrong here, Bree. Like you can't make an informed decision if you don't have both sides, and this is not saying we're going to agree, but at least I heard you out, at least I heard you out. And so I had to, and it was hard. I ain't gonna hold you. Sometimes I still be like, oh, please, just a little bit softer. Can you just say it a little better? And they like, I am saying it soft. And I'm like, is it like, but again, this is me growing up, not being accustomed to hearing men speak, whether men of God or not. Like I wasn't in that environment. I come from a matriarchal line. And so there are very limited men in my family. Rudy Rudy, I've listened to you speak. That is true. That is true. But you speak calmly and clear, and so I'll give you that. I could listen to you, Rudy. I could rock with you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Okay, y'all. Any more questions? I've been on here 2 hours. Thank y'all for rocking with me thus far. But are there any more questions? If not, if you didn't like the video, like the video. But if not, I'm gonna hop off. Again, join my mailing list at Brianna Whiteside. And the way that this channel functions, I'm gonna tell y'all the schedule so it won't look crazy to you. Sunday night, I drop the podcast. Monday morning, we have the Christian Living Morning Show. That's morning encouragement. Tuesday, I drop Strategy Tuesday. So we look at the Bible for strategies on how to progress. And let me say this about that strategy. So I saw people in the comments, and I love that comment about Joseph going from the pit to the palace. But yeah, I want to challenge your study or your interpretation of that, right? Because sometimes when we know that story, we're like, oh, Joseph was thrown in the pit and he went up after the pit. But can I submit to you that all of this was management training? He went from managing the family business to managing, was it Potiphar's house? Was it Potiphar house that he managed the entire estate, whomever it was that the lady accused him, the wife accused him. So he went from managing the family business, the sheep's, to managing, I think it's Potiphar's house, estate, to managing the prison, the state prison or the geographical prison, to being a governor. So even in that low level, there was still that management training for him to then rise as the Prince of Egypt. Not the Prince of Egypt, to then rise as second in command to Pharaoh to manage all of that other stuff. So it wasn't just a pit to palace thing. Every step of the way, though it seemed like a downward spiral over and over again, there was management training that allowed him to be able to not only just manage, as a governor or second to command of Pharaoh, but also help him come up with strategy on how to create generational cycles of wealth for his boss. It wasn't just pit to palace. Every step of the way, there was management training. I just had to say it. I just had to say that. So Strategy Tuesday on Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, we're on my blog at BriannaWhiteside.com. Thursdays, I drop a kingdom teaching. Fridays, I let you live. And Saturdays, the guest bloggers are on the website. And then we do it again. And so now y'all know how I work over here. I think that's it. Let me know if y'all got anything else. My soul feels free. I'm so glad your soul feels free. Crystal, thank you. Potiphar's house. Thank you so much. But if y'all don't have any questions, I'm hungry. So I'm going to get off. It was good to see y'all. It's nice to meet everybody on here. Thank you so much for journeying with me. Thank you so much for rocking with me. And I'm going to see y'all tomorrow. On the podcast. I hope y'all watch. It drops at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if there are not any more questions, y'all enjoy your Saturday. And I hope this one gets as much views as the other ones. Thanks for rocking with me. I'll see you soon. Bye.